Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Joe Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site, we have Matt Chang. He's founder of Chang Robotics, Marc Manning, CEO of Kodiak Technologies, as well as Mitch Carlson, CEO of Green Corridors and Snubbertech Manufacturing. We're here to discuss strategizing for Made in America manufacturing. It is great to have all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. Matt, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you.
Have you in studio this time, and we spoke about a year ago, Chang Robotics as it relates to robotics and automation. What are the biggest things that you've done since, and how is it playing into the Made in America mindset?
Yeah, so we're all about Made in America, Jill. The big progress we made is we did commission the nation's first autonomous hospital. Also, one of our very first projects is going live this week with the Secretary of Transportation, an autonomous mass transit system sponsored by the US DOT. And most importantly, we started an investment company to invest in Made in USA companies.
Well, if you can improve the regional transportation in the New York area, you might get the Peace Prize for that one. Marc, Kodiak Technologies, tell us a bit about it. You've premiered a commercial EV snow removal?
Yes, I'm CEO of Kodiak Tech. We are the world's first electric snow removal equipment used in airports, ski resorts, and all sorts of other applications. The big benefit of us is normally snow removal equipment is just a giant paperweight in the summer. We are an exportable power, so we can help with grid resiliency and grid storage. As we're now making these investments in AI and everything, it's very much needed to go for in the future.
And you had featured this or premiered it at the Port of Authority Expo.
Yes, we recently premiered it, and we have lots of great airports trying to come into the pipeline, trying to buy from us. We've been very successful in the fact that we're just not a snow removal equipment. The fact that we can be dual purpose, a lot of the airports are really looking forward to using it.
And Mitch, Green Corridors mega project was just approved by the Trump administration recently and introduced in the Wall Street Journal. That's a big move. Congratulations on that. Tell us exactly what the project is. How is the approval impacting it?
Yeah, the project is linking Monterrey, Mexico with Laredo, Texas. It's essentially, we focus on congested freight corridors. This one has a border crossing in the middle of it. It's a 165-mile intercity connection. We build elevated guideways parallel along the state highways, specialized terminals, software, web apps, and we interface with the trucking industry and the logistics industry and really remove the bottleneck of this very congested corridor on the #1 port of entry in America is Laredo, Texas.
So like Marc, you're looking to improve operational efficiency across the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah. Matt, you've been vocal about Made in America, and you are walking the walk. You're investing in companies that are making and manufacturing in America. Why is this deeply important?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of engineers like myself, we started our career in globalization. I'm a licensed engineer in China. I know Marc and Mitch have both worked internationally on their major projects. And I think just as a coming of age, it's time to bring it back here. And we have the capabilities here. That's really my message, is a lot of people hear this reshoring Made in USA message and they go, it sounds great, but how do we do it? And I think the 3 stories from each of us today is how you do it. We are actually doing it. We have the capabilities, we have the great technical minds, and we have the great workforces here. So we want to make sure people know that, and that American companies can expand their production here and become exporting companies.
Yeah, and you're an engineer
by
trade as well, which is, and I'm glad you brought up the skill sets in the labor force, because that's going to be critical for this transition. I mean, even when you think about manufacturing process, the design, the production underway, how does Made in America play into this process?
Well, it's for the regulation that we're in is that the Made in America, Buy America helps get the federal fundings for the airports, for the transit. I used to run bus engineering for LA Metro and Chicago Transit Authority. To buy an electric bus, it had to have a certain Buy America content. So because of that, we're making sure the engineering is done locally. We're making sure the manufacturing is done locally, the supply chain is done locally, which is, I think, as everyone wants, we want to have jobs in the US, we want to have all the talent and all the innovation local.
Realistically, I mean, that does take time. It does take investment. There are parts, and pieces that are only available in certain parts of the world as well. So it sounds as if public-private partnerships, such as we're talking about today, is going to be critical for that.
100% agree. Public-private partnerships are the way to help streamline and expedite this process to build the infrastructure, get the vehicles on time, and make sure the equipment's made here as well.
Yeah, and Mitch, you have 2 companies, and you've already achieved Made in America status as well, and it's also part of the current focus. How challenging was that to achieve?
To be honest, it's just what we've always done. This wasn't a switch that was consciously made. We've been manufacturing machinery, oil and gas equipment, technology in America for 2 decades. You got all the talent here, all the raw materials here, everything you need in America. It's really, there's no better place to do it.
Well, I think when you're talking about emerging technologies to help execute on this, you want to solve a problem, right? Not create solutions for problems that don't exist. So where did the idea for green corridors come from? What's the why behind it?
Yeah, so the idea came out of the Texas Transportation Institute in Texas A&M University, back in the early 2000s.
We just had their Dean of Engineering on the show. Yep.
Nice.
So know them well. Yep.
So they really just wanted to focus on decongesting very congested freight corridors.
Matt, when you think about some of the challenges and working with Fortune 500 companies and manufacturers and so forth, what are their opinions? How are you guiding them?
Yeah, so we do serve a number of the Fortune 500 manufacturing companies. The number 1 challenge they're having right now is workforce.
Right.
The number 2 challenge they're having is cost of goods. The raw material costs are bearing the brunt of the inflation that we've seen. So just to buy the materials they need to make product costs more. And then finally, energy costs more. So when you have workforce challenges, both with retention and access to workforce, then you have these cost input issues, and then you add energy to the top, manufacturers are getting squeezed. So what we try to do when we engineer solutions and robotic systems for companies is we just try to make sure we're impacting all 3. We want to drop the cost of energy, the amount they need to consume. We want to make the workforce happy because they have the latest and greatest toys to do the manufacturing with. And then we also want to make sure that we're being more efficient with the raw materials so that the companies can have higher profit and then offer lower prices at the store.
Why is there a challenge with the workforce? Is it part of the curriculum? Is it lack of interest to get into manufacturing? What can be done to support it better?
Well, you know, I don't think we're going to unpack why we have a workforce challenge in the country today, but what we can talk about is when companies invest in advanced technology, automation and robotics, the retention goes through the roof. Those employees that get to work with high-end technology, first off, it's physically easier, it's ergonomically better for the human body to work with technology, and then it's cool. So regular blue-collar workers get to go home and they tell their kids that they're running an autonomous robot system, and that just drives pride, and it gives them marketable job skills, and those employees typically get higher pay, which leads to retention.
Yeah, well, it's part of the circular economy too, right? You have good salary jobs, and that's going to go back into the economy. Are there any catch points or hurdles that you've run into with the Made in America goal?
I mean, I think as you said, there are certain components that just aren't made in the U.S., right? So we need to have time to bring those into the U.S. and bring them into the manufacturing. But a lot of the things that we have, I would say, in terms of electric vehicles, some of them already have been created to where we can buy them in the U.S., right? So our battery supplier was already used by electric bus manufacturers already. So we're able to take some of that advantage that federal funding already enabled manufacturing in the U.S. and build upon that. The big thing for us is, since we are the first industrial 50,000 pound vehicle, right? There's a lot of things we're having to create new, integrate differently, right? Yeah. So that's the big challenge.
Since we're speaking of federal funding and so forth, how important is the environment right now and getting clarity around tariffs as an example?
I would say, you know, yet again, I think that kind of is where on the tariff side, I think it is forcing us to try to find all the places where we could be Buy America that we may not be, right? I think we do need to figure out you know, various things as we go to market, as our clients are asking for it. We make sure that our end goal, right, is, if I could, I'd make it 100% in America, right? Mm-hmm. But, you know, the requirements aren't that, but I'm trying to make it to where that's the goal at the end of the day, that every component that we have is that way, to drive the right direction for our company.
Yeah, and Mitch, now that you have the White House approval, what are the next milestones for green corridors? Where do you see yourself, let's call it, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, we'll be building iterations of prototypes for the shuttles, the cranes, the lifting technology. There's some additional permitting that needs to happen on the Mexican side of the border, and we're working on that. So construction, we are targeting 2028 to begin constructing this in operations in 2031, 2032.
So I would imagine permitting regulatory requirements is a big part of that timeline.
That's,
in general,
yes.
not just for your project.
That's one thing that the Trump administration has done, is deregulated a lot of these, well, for projects over a certain dollar amount, which this is a $10 billion project. There's been a deregulation mindset, this is the biggest hurdle for us, is regulations.
The fact of the matter is we need to do something about our infrastructure.
Yes.
In the country here. You know, it's critical, you know, especially in Texas, in the area that you're in. Matt, when you're thinking about making investments into companies and advising on Made in America, are there certain areas that are more attractive than others? What goes behind the analysis?
Yeah, so two big wins. We're early investors in both Kodiak Tech and also Green Corridors here, which are going to both change the world, we believe. And since we're engineering first as an investment company, we just look, does it work, and does the company have the right team? That's the underwriting. So we have that ability to look at technology and say, yes, this is going to work. And what that takes us to next is we want to see use cases solved. We're not trying to do globally scalable technologies. You know, we talked humanoids earlier today. We love that, we're rooting for it, but we're not investing in that because there's not a use case yet. What we're looking for is specific use cases that solve a problem, such as freight and such as airport operations, and then we want to go solve that. That moves the needle, and then those technologies can be applied in the next use case once the first is proven.
Right, and to me that sounds like common sense when you think about transportation and the supply chain. I mean, you're talking about national security at this point as well, right?
Absolutely.
Especially when we think about critical infrastructure. Again, you know, the Texas grid is a great example of that, but I think you know, there are the cool parts of robotics, if you will, as you mentioned before, but when it comes to, you know, realigning the supply chain, I think even from a government perspective, and we spoke about this on a panel yesterday, that they're just really learning as a result of what we experienced during COVID, the underlying infrastructure of that. It's so complex, which is why I was asking, like, some modicum of patience and investment, you know, to onshore this it's necessary.
That's right, and we were joking before the show that every company is a tech company now.
Right.
Right, and so what really has to happen is this integration of a tech stack, right? So it's not good enough just to be a payment system. It's not good enough to be just an AI system or just a robot system. All the technologies have to come together. And that's why when we're investing, we're looking for founders who understand that vision, that they can pull together these different disciplines into a cohesive system. And that's really our focus, is systems engineering, system thinking, and system robotics.
How does cybersecurity play into that? Are you looking for companies that they are cyber, privacy, data governance first? Does that go into the equation?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is the number one thing.
Right.
You know, just as our engineering robotics company, our largest policies are cyber policy. Right. And the emerging ecosystem is what's called OT, operational technology. This is IoT, it's the robots, it's the payment system, it's all this connected devices that enterprises have today. Those are the weak points, those are the threats. Yeah. So cyber has to be the first in thinking. We put a huge emphasis on our company. We have a lot of talent there, but we also use external partners because the problems are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and that's encouraging to hear because, you know, a little bit off topic from manufacturing, but there was such a rush to implement AI technologies, whether it was internal, external, and, you know, risk models are going to shift because of that. I mean, it happened so quick over the past 2 to 3 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that we'll be able to do on the AI side for our vehicles, right, is we're going to make sure that all of our vehicles, speaking of the cybersecurity part, are going to be connected, right? We're going to make sure we can see what's going on in the vehicle real time. We're going to make sure that the operational will be efficiency, and all of that will be machine learning, AI, making sure the vehicle's charged, making sure we're providing the right energy to the grid on the asset side. All of that's going to be interconnected to make sure the streamlined operations for any of our end users are going to be there.
Right. I mean, because at the end of the day, all these emerging technologies is only going to put more demand on this critical infrastructure at the end of the day. So, yeah. Final thoughts here, Matt, as you look out 3 to 5 years, we were talking about this off camera before, when you think about giving advice to people going to school these days, right? We were being flippant about, used to be Python or coding and so forth,
Right.
but we've seen these technologies take a big part of that job. With engineering specifically, what are your advice for people looking to get into the space, or how they should think about the future with these emerging technologies converging with it?
Well, yeah, one thing that's not going away is licensed professionals. I'm a licensed PE, professional engineer. I certainly think hard physical engineering is a fantastic education for anybody. Structural, mechanical, civil, any of the electrical engineering. These are so critical, and that's what the nation needs more of. I think on the trade level, the single largest deficit that we have in the country is electricians.
Yes.
So we're going to do data centers, we're going to do AI and EVs all at the same time. Oh, and we need to build power plants. We need more electricians. So there's a huge opportunity for any part of the workforce to engage, whether it's the technical side or the blue collar side, is develop a trade in one of these critical industries that we just need to have more of.
See, AI isn't taking jobs away. It's just reskilling the workforce. This is not the first iteration that we've been through.
Correct.
So that's encouraging to hear. Appreciate all of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.